Hey YouTubers, Electric Adventures here with the next episode in my series Electric Adventures the Games, where I'm basically going through my original early games, all available on the Electric Adventures Classics, the early years compilation disc. These games are also freely available for the MSX on my website. Unfortunately not for the original Spectravideo because I still haven't been able to restore my original disc. So last episode we looked at Galactic Assault, which was the last program on Program Pack 1. Released them in program packs of anywhere between 2 and 4 games, depending on the size of it and the complexity. So my second one, the first game on it is Hopper. Well, it's the first one listed, but I do know this might have been written a little later than some of the other ones on the pack, because it actually introduces a little bit of machine code, so we'll load it. Let's just give it a list so we can see how long it is. This has quite a few more sprite shapes as well, so we should be definitely going up in complexity compared to the previous version. So as you can see, there's a big data whack there, but still we're only 53 lines long, and that includes those last 2 lines are actually the machine code routine. Now when we go through the listing, I'm not going to go through that particular machine code routine in detail, but I do have an article on it on my website called Beyond Basic. Anyway, let's run this one. Right, so here we go. Let's play the game. Now, some of my early titles were released under the name Unisoft. Sorry for the brief change in my attire, but when I went to edit this, the sound was terrible. We still have a bit of a background hum. I don't know where that's come from. Obviously got a bit of equipment that's not playing well. So, let's give this a go. I even have a bit of intro music, which is pretty good for me. The beep is to clear the sound channels, which was the best way I could do that back then. Now there is a slight, pause when there's movement, which is basically to play the sound. So, there were... Oops. Missed the first one. This is still a fairly early game as far as my program is concerned. Its main thing is that, I've worked out the machine code routine to smoothly move the... move the sprites. So all of these objects are all made out of sprites, all the things moving. I'm going to make this, let's see. The one on the left is of course the hard one. Oh, that was so close. So you've got, the controls are reasonably responsive, and bar the movement of the logs, turtles, and cars, everything else is done by basic. Sound, you can tell I'm using keys. So I was always quite pleased with this game, and it was one of my better selling titles. Came with 3 other good titles as well. So we can do a bit of intermission music. When we go up in speed, plus we now get the snake, which of course if it touches you, it kills you. And as we progress through the levels, you'll notice the snake is moving at slightly, that was close, slightly different speed as well, so you have to watch your timing, how fast the game gets. Go for the right one. go. Oops, too slow. Shows you can get run over by the cars. Done that. Okay, are we going to make it? Yep. Yay! We get to level C, level 3. On this one, better go get one of these done. Watch my timing on those. Oh, that means I've got an extra life. Oh, I'm down by a car. Okay, get everyone. Yeah. Don't screw up. You have a chance of looking up. Chance of seeing level 4. I think I might have taken advantage of a little bug there. That was pure luck. Twice in a row. So obviously, if I rewrote this in complete machine code, you wouldn't have this little bit of jerking you get. When I move the frog, whoops, and we could have had more animation on both the frog and the cars. Probably don't have diving turtles. Oh, I can't believe I made that. Is that going to swing around? Oh, we might actually. Wow. Now we'll see if it gets any faster. Okay, pronounce the speed insane. And I think I made a mistake. Ah, too slow. Well, there you go. As you can see, it's a good fun game, quite replayable. Has a lot of advanced techniques and things like that, but it's still not a big listing. Has all the has some good elements and makes it a really good playable game, and shows basically it's still pretty powerful. Add a teensy weensy little bit of machine code, and you can move a lot of objects. All right. Well, let's go on and have a look at that. Obviously, we're going to get another a tyre change because we'll go back to my previous footage before walking through the code. Okay, let's go do that now. Right, set the colour back so you guys can see. Files again. Whoops. Keyboard wearing slightly there. Alright, well, we skipped our first couple of lines, but I've been through, if you've been following through the series, the first part of it is very similar. Draw a bit of a title, and then restore our data to the start. And we've got 15 sprite shapes this time, so read them in as a string, and then I break those strings up and set the sprite values, which is excellent. Next, on line 30, we actually go and read in, I think this is the initial positions for all of the sprites. Oh, no, I apologise. No, line 30 is reading in our little bit of machine code. So it's actually 26 bytes long, the machine code. So what that's doing is using the timer interrupt, which the MSX and Spectravideo have. So it's the actual clock chip, it's not using the vertical blank as I'd have to do on the Coleco and some of the other systems that don't have a clock. So it's using the clock, and an interrupt gets called. So in MSX and Spectravideo Basic, there's a spot in memory where you can put what's called a hook. So every time the timer is called, it will call your little bit of machine code. And that's what our little routine is doing there, basically, is reading in those values. And also on that line, for A equals 0 to 31, we're actually zeroing out a whole lots of memory, which is basically probably all the extra position information I use for the sprites. And then we read some other values, which are that's probably our starting positions. So that's into our C and CA2 there. Line 40, we pop up the score, the high score, and the lives up the top, because basically this one doesn't really have a true title screen. It has an intro title screen, and then the main title screen is the game itself. So we're setting up the game. Line 50 is drawing the playfield, so that's drawing the different coloured stripes up the screen. And then line 60 is where our program starts. Now, so we've got a go sub 300, we'll have a look at that later. Now on interval, so that's the basics equivalent of on a timer interrupt. And it's going interval equals 2, so that's probably every 2 intervals, so probably twice per second. And then we turn that interval on, and we display our press trigger to begin. So all pretty standard so far. Well, besides the machine code, which is not standard, is it? We've got a value incrementing there if it gets to 10. And then we've got another S one, I take it. S would be speed. And if 14 equals 15, so we've got a changing value there. We'll have to figure out what that is later. Line 80 V poke is our speed, going into a particular address. Once again, without notes, it's a little hard for me to figure this out. So we've got an if not string, so that's looking for the trigger, and if not, we loop back to 70. So that's basically shows the start of the game. All of the pieces will be moving, and it's ready for us to press trigger to actually start playing the game. Once we've pressed the trigger, we have we go sub to 300 again, draw out a line up top, which is probably rubbing out the press play to begin. We set our score to be 0, our lives to be 5, M, which is probably our level. Call a couple of subroutines, and we set a couple of, I reckon the H values are whether or not a frog has made it to the top of the screen, into the 4 hutches. That would be my guess. Line 90, we do a beep, which is a really quick way of clearing out all the sound registers, because you don't know what it was like before then. And then we put a play, which is a set of musical instructions into a string, and we call the play command. Very powerful. And this particular one uses 3 channels, just with slightly different different octaves. So octave 6, octave 3, and octave 4, just to give it a little bit more flavour to the music. No, definitely nowhere near advanced as other people who are much better at music than me, but very good for me back then, because I've never been that fantastic in music. So line 100, basically if play 0, that's waiting until the play statement has finished. It'll loop around there. Otherwise we wipe out a bit of the screen, set our original X coordinates, and put our frog on the screen. Let's see what we've got next. Just fit on the screen. So our line 110 is looking for our joystick direction, and then based on that, it's moving it. So wherever you're making the X increase or decrease, and every time we do it, we use play to play a sound, and we use vpoke to change just the coordinate we're changing. So rather than using a sprite statement and changing X, Y, the colour and the shape, we're only changing one bit of video memory. So it's a trick I learned in the later games that speed things up a little bit. And obviously using play for sound effects here instead of actual sounds, because when you start a play thing, it's interrupt driven, so it's only going to load it and start playing it, and it'll play it in the background. And we actually have a short delay after the play as well, so removing that delay may actually be interesting to see whether it could get rid of some of that jumpiness when we actually do the movement. So line 120, just checking our X hasn't gone off the left or the right hand side of the screen. Otherwise we actually set the X place. Now 130 we turn sprite off, that's probably our sprite interrupt, so to see whether things have collided. And just having a look at what it's doing here. Right, it's setting the Y coordinate if our A value still has our joystick direction in it, so if it's 1 we're moving up, so it's the same as the X and Y. We decrease our Y, we'll move our frog up the screen. And there's the play music there, the go sub. And then on sprite, go sub. Yes, okay. So on sprite go sub is actually the VDP, which is the video processor that comes with the MSX, Coleco, and other TI 9938 or 99XX. Systems allows you to have an interrupt fire off when any of the sprites are touching each other. So that cuts down a little bit of having to test whether things are touching each other every single loop. So we'll have a look at that routine. That routine is obviously line 190, which we'll get to shortly. Then line 150, we turn that sprite interrupt on. We call our user routine, which is our little bit of machine code. And then we increase the X by the X change. Right, so that XC would be, if we're on a log, we're moving at the same speed of the log, so it needs to move our X across the screen automatically. That's doing that, and my little machine code routine is supplying that XC value, I would say. Or is it doing the previous line? No, it's doing that on the previous line. We update a couple of things. And yeah, the TT is our time, so we increase our time and we draw our time box, and if it equals 50 then 190, which I'd say that's bang, you run out of time. So 160 to 190, big lines, oh, not too bad. So our next line, not sure what LL was. Larger than 2, then something to do with speed, and then we've got a little bit of test, and then go to 110, we loop back to the start of our loop. As I said, this is the first time I'm looking at this code for a long time as well, and there was no room for comments to squeezing these into basic listings. So line 190, it's one of our subroutines. So the first thing I do on these is turn the sprite interrupt off, so we don't get any collision detection firing off when we're in these. We're checking to see if the music is finished, otherwise we loop around. That's fine. Else, we poke some values into the video memory. We do a sound. There's a bit of a gradiating sound. I reckon this is dying. This is our routine we call when we die. Line 190. Yep, you can see lives equals lives minus 1. We set up, we actually do use a sound, but use some loops to actually make that dropping sound that you heard. And we loop for a little while and make all the objects move, and that's why they move so quickly, because nothing's being interrupted. Yeah, for a count of 100, and then we go back to 100, which is yeah, if our lives are larger than 0, we continue on, otherwise we display our game over. So 200, 250. Ooh, that was close. So line 200 is where our game's over. We display game over. See if our score is higher than the highest score, play a thing if it was, and then go to 40, which is basically right at the start of the program. Line 220 is our next subroutine. This is checking to see whether our frog has entered one of the hatches at the top of the screen. You can see the H variable being used there. They're all individually tested there. Ifs are fairly quick with MSX Basic, so they're probably I could have stored in an array and done a bit of a loop, but you've got to watch loops because they slow things down more than you think. So that's basically what that subroutine does. It checks for hatches. And 230, if it gets to 230, you've actually made it into a hutch, and we put our frog in the hutch properly, and we update our score based on our time. There's a bit of a delay there. And then line 240, and we display if we make it to line 240, we've got all 4 hutches filled, and we get our 1,000 point bonus for finishing a level. As my cat comes in and probably demands tea. We play another little tune to say that we've finished a level. Sorry, there's the cat. When the cats want cuddles, the cats want cuddles. Okay, and we play that tune. We wait for that tune to finish, and else we return. So, and then there's another subroutine, obviously 270. All it does is set f equals 1 and return. Don't really know what that one does. Line 280 is another subroutine, and it looks like it's updating our score, checking whether our score is past our extra man times 10,000. So obviously once you get your score past 10,000, you don't want to keep on adding lives until you get to 20,000. So we increase extra man EM to be 1 more, and next time we'll have to get 20,000. And we play another play statement to signify that we've got that extra life, and we return otherwise. And if we did get an extra life, 290 rubs out the live counter and puts a new one there. So line 300 looks like it's calling doing randomness here. Right, this probably sets up our initial lines of things and sets the starting position offset by a random anywhere from 0 to 100. So that gets us a different pattern every time we start the game or start a run. Pushing it a little bit here. I did try to fit a lot into some things. So line 310, we generate another couple of random numbers, and yeah, this is all this section is setting up the playfield with the logs and the turtles and the cars based on the row and a random starting position. So I'm not going to go through that in too much detail because be very hard to pick apart at the moment, and that's pretty much everything on the screen. That's that whole subroutine there. It's doing a lot, as you can see, and there's probably a bit there that puts the snake probably about, I reckon, line 330 is putting the snake on the screen if you're up to the level with the snake. Alright, so let's go here. Oh, there we go. And we have another little user routine 360 which calls our machine code subroutine and updates our X coordinate based on the change. So I probably could have reused that in that other spot where you saw that exact same code. And then from 370 onwards, we basically have our sprite data statements. So there'll be 12 of those. I'll just do it from there on. Yeah, 12 of those, and then there would be our initial position data and our machine code routine. Or it's a machine code routine first, and then those line 530 are our initial positions. So to read it in so we can do it in a loop rather than having to code every one. So I know this is probably going through this code a little fast, but the code is available for download from my website. I'll update the article that's on the website and put a link down below. Feel free to download it and have a play. Try it out on MSX emulator, or obviously a physical MSX if you have one. Thoroughly enjoying the series. So this is the first program on Program Pack 2. We actually have another 3 titles on this one to go through. I'll be along soon with another episode. So I'm Electric Adventures. Thanks to all my subscribers. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.